Hi everybody, it's Rachel. Today I want to talk about my favorite nonfiction books. And so I really tried to only narrow it down to the nonfiction that has really stayed with me or changed my perspective or, I don't know, really had a strong impact on me in some kind of way. When I was a kid, I didn't think I liked reading nonfiction. I think it just took me a while to figure out that I don't like brick-sized autobiographies. I don't know why I kept going to those as a kid, but I don't like those. I like things that are a little bit more focused or things that are more informational rather than focused on a person. I am going to start off, I feel like first half, I'm going to talk about memoirs, and then second half, I'm going to talk about those more informational books about particular topics that interest me rather than being focused on people. So I feel like the first two memoirs that have had an impact I read as a teenager. So let's start all the way back there. Holocaust memoirs. Hello. So we've got The Diary of Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, and then we have Night by Elie Wiesel. Not the most groundbreaking choices. I know a lot of you probably read those before, but I feel like especially when you're learning about the Holocaust for the first time as a teenager, even if you've had bad things happen in your life, and even if you are aware that there is evil in the world, I feel like when we learn about the Holocaust, that's when we are, as teenagers, realizing that the world can systemically be evil. Obviously, with Night, it's very, very dark and horrendous. It's about Ellie's time in concentration camps with his father when they were taken away, and it's really disturbing, and you read it and you think about it for the rest of your life. The Diary of a Young Girl is definitely lighter in the sense that she doesn't write about her time in the camps. She writes about her time obviously in the secret annex, and so there's definitely more room for hope. And I feel like 14-year-old me, a lot of 14-year-old girls out there, read Anne Frank's memoir, and we're just kind of shocked that a teenager from 1944 or whatever had a lot of the same kind of sentiments that teenage girls do now. Even though the Holocaust, we think about it as this kind of this distant thing, I feel like it brings it kind of closer to home when you read these memoirs and you're able to connect with the speaker and just feel really gutted and transformed. So we're starting off big, guys. So those were the first memoirs that really had a big impact on me. So to kind of completely change the pace, it's still in the category of memoir, I read Shout by Laurie Halse Anderson back in 2020, and that's a memoir written in poetry, and it's fantastic, guys. So Laurie Halse Anderson, you might know her from her book Speak. In Shout, she talks about a lot of different things with her life, particularly her parents and how they were kind of struggling to take care of themselves for a variety of reasons. As a result, how in God's name could they have really taken care of her that efficiently? She talks about her experience being assaulted, and I'm telling you guys, if you've already read Speak and then you read Shout, and now you get to see what little details in Speak were connected to a real life experience, it's just awful. But it's not like a wholly miserable memoir. I mean, yeah, she's talking about her father's PTSD, her mother's fear, and her really crappy upbringing and experiences, but she's also talking about being able to be a spokesperson for assault survivors in her career, and other kind of joyous things in her life. One of the things that's sticking out is when she studied abroad in Denmark and things like that. But the thing that kills me about this book is not so much what's going on, it's how she talks about it. Her poetry style is glorious, guys. I loved it so much. And so I still think about it a lot, and I still go back to some of my favorite poems from it. Another memoir, As I Knew Him, My Dad, Rod Serling by Anne Serling. I've talked about this on the channel before. It was one of my favorite books that I had read a couple years ago. And Rod Serling is the creator and host of The Twilight Zone, y'all. He's the dude with the cigarette that tells you that you are in the Twilight Zone. And he's just the coolest person that has ever lived, almost, pretty much. Jewish World War II vet, animal enthusiast, fantastic father, amazing sci-fi writer. Hello? This man is husband material. I love him so much. And in Anne Serling's account of her father, She is, I mean, she's talking about what it was like to really grow up with him. He seems like this mysterious figure to us, and she describes him as this wonderful family man. And the vivid memories that she shares of her childhood, she doesn't drone on it on forever. It's only like a 200 something or maybe 300 page book. But the memories that she chooses to focus on are so, so rich and so beautiful that it really like left a lasting impression on me that like, this is how good you can make a childhood, right? And also, she, of course, tackles, you know, when her father passed away, the grief that she had and how she really struggled with PTSD symptoms after this, and how it started to feel like everyone was moving on and she wasn't. And it was just really heart-wrenching. Like, I knew how the story was going to end. I knew he was going to die. Like, he's been dead for decades, but it still hit me really hard when I read it. But yeah, when I think back to that book, I think the pieces of me that I kind of carry, Twilight Zone's always been a big part of my life because my dad and I would watch it together and stuff, and so I still watch the marathons when they're on. Just all the knowledge I gained about Rod Serling, I think about quite frequently as I encounter him, but also just, I don't know, there's something about her memories of growing up. It's just something that brought me some kind of comfort. You know, whereas some of the memoirs I talk about are kind of showing us the darkness of the world, I feel like despite also tackling grief in this book, she brings a lot of light, I feel like, through those memories. And so I think about them often. When I read a memoir from somebody that I know of, it's always going to color my view of them. And so the pop culture icon that I grew up watching and listening to was Britney Spears, of course. So the woman in me really ripped me up a little bit. And now whenever I listen to her music, especially the frickin' song Every Time, I already love that song, and now it just rips me to shreds more now that we have some added context of what really went on between her and Justin and things like that. And I know that it might sound trivial to list this one, but I feel like it really outlines the mistreatment that most of us had no idea was going on behind the scenes. I think it's really harrowing when you have a lot of good memories surrounding somebody, even through a parasocial relationship with like a celebrity or something. I think it's really harrowing to know that they brought you so much joy, but the entire time they were suffering. And I think that is just awful. A lot of the things that she's gone through, I feel like people sometimes still act like I said, that this is kind of a trivial subject. I mean, she's like a super wealthy celebrity. What else does she have to worry about? I mean, she was sabotaged by her family, basically treated like a cash cow at this point. I mean, being forced to take drugs that you feel like you do not need, and being forced into a psychiatric hold because you didn't want to do what your dad was telling you to at the age of like 35. Like, that's wild to me. The complete lack of freedom that was legally allowed, not being able to make choices on if she had more kids or not. Like, I just think that this one it's definitely eye-opening if you were a fan, but even if you've just kind of watched her as a pop culture phenomena from the periphery, I think that this gives like a lot of context that we never knew that we ever needed. And I feel like this also kind of, I think for a lot of fans, it kind of strengthened that parasocial relationship that she was able to tell her own story for the first time. In general, I think that I like the way that the memoir was written. Obviously, she would have had a ghostwriter, I'm sure. I still feel like you can hear Britney's voice come through in moments, little Britney-isms, because you got to remember, she's just a girl from Louisiana. I think a lot of her tweets well, not tweets anymore, but I think a lot of her Instagram captions make a lot more sense if you read it in your head with like her little Louisiana accent. She just talks a little different. Okay. So this next section are going to be my favorite like informational type books. The first one, some of these titles are really long and I don't remember what they actually are, so let's look. Quiet. I usually just call it Quiet, but it's technically Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Susan Cain. This was the first informational book that I really reached for when I was kind of still trying out reading more nonfiction. Loved this book. I'm very introverted, and I feel like this book really contextualizes why you're like that if you're an introvert. And so they're going back into like even animal studies like on birds and things like that, introversion and extroversion in birds, and how like we need both personality types in evolution, and the benefits and drawbacks in the past and now even in like basic leadership positions. What makes an introvert feel comfortable is going to be very different from what makes an extrovert comfortable. Introverts just need to recharge by themselves. Not like we love being by ourselves 24/7, but we cannot really recharge with others. And I still think about this book a lot because I still sometimes, I'm an introvert in a very extroverted country, right? And sometimes I will compare myself a little bit in how much I'm getting out. I didn't used to do this. I feel like I do this now post-COVID because I was really trying to encourage myself, like, okay, I can get out of the house more now. Now, I don't know. I just feel like it's getting to the point that I have discovered that I really like being at home with my husband and my cat. I go out sometimes, but like not all the time. And I think that's fine. I just think it's really easy to feel like you're just weird when you're an introvert, right? And I think that this book helped me not feel like that so much anymore. So I really liked it. Really engaging research too, by the way. The next one. Parallel Worlds, A Journey Through Creation, Higher Dimensions, and the Future of the Cosmos by Michio Kaku. I'm a little bit of a space freak. I love reading about stuff like this. Can I do physics? No, I didn't even take physics. Do I understand the math behind any of this stuff? Absolutely freaking not, but I understand the theories, right? And I think that Michio Kaku does an amazing job of explaining higher level things in a way that you can understand, even if you really don't know what he's talking about, like really. You can understand it, you can follow it, and you can be amazed by it still, and it's still very engaging. So this one, it talks about, I remember learning about like black holes and all of the Goldilocks stuff that had to happen for us to even exist. Whether it's the timing of the Big Bang and like how quick the explosion was and exactly where the sun was placed relative to the sun, and Jupiter has to be behind us to eat up the asteroids. Like it's, I'm talking about this like I'm insane, but like it's a bunch of science stuff. Can I really explain it to you? No, but I did understand it when I was reading it, and it's been a minute. And I just walked away from this with I feel like just a better understanding of our place in the universe and how magical it really is, even if you're just looking at it from a solely scientific perspective. It is quite magical that we're here to begin with. And like literally it's a freaking science book, right? And he got me tearing up a little bit because he goes into this really heartfelt thing towards the end where, he studied, what the universe was like and could have been like in the past, and what we think it could be like in the future, and how if he had to choose a different place to a different time to live in our universe, he would still choose right now. And I just think that that's so powerful coming from him of all people. So I need to read more by this author. I have more, it's just I don't know, I really need to make sure I'm in that science mood. And I'll tackle some more, but yeah, it was very engaging. I really liked it. There were a couple concepts that I was like, I don't know if I understand this, but overall, I think it was I could follow it. I could follow it pretty well. So this one's really personal. I've talked about this one on the channel before. It was my favorite book that I read in 2021, Doing Harm by Maya Dusenberry. Full title would be Doing Harm, The Truth About How Bad Medicine and Lazy Science Leave Women Dismissed, Misdiagnosed, and Sick. I picked this up because I was feeling very dismissed by doctors, and when I saw this title, it kind of made me feel like, oh, maybe this isn't just a me problem. It's absolutely not just a me problem. This is a whole systemic thing. Maya Dusenberry kind of talks about how women are kind of left out of scientific conversations by design, starting in trials with mice. We don't have female mice representing us, and most of the time it's usually male mice. So starting from there into, we're not studying a lot of the conditions that impact women as like specifically as much as things that impact men. So we already have this knowledge gap. And then it also goes into how like women are just oftentimes not listened to by doctors. We're looked at as like these delicate little flowers that are just exaggerating all of our symptoms. And it took me 12 years to get diagnosed with PCOS. So that's where I kind of went into this. And it just made me feel mad and depressed, but also just so vindicated and so validated, because okay, it wasn't just me this whole time. Like, doctors really just don't listen to women. And I feel like this book did really empower me to start fighting for myself and advocating for myself more. Nowadays, I go through doctors like nothing. Like, if the second that one of them bugs me a little bit, or I disagree with something, or I feel like I'm not being heard, it's on to the next one, buddy, because it took me 12 years to get diagnosed with a thing. I don't have time for you. I'm done wasting time hoping that someone is going to help me. I just go for it. And obviously that's kind of a privilege thing, because not everyone has money to yo-yo around with doctors. Fortunately, I have insurance where I can a little bit, and yeah, it's definitely an insightful read. Next, I didn't know that this one, when I read it, would have such a big impact on me and the way that I look at my life, as it really did in the end, but Laziness Does Not Exist by Devin Price. So this author talks about burnout, basically, and how a lot of times we feel like we're being so lazy, but in reality it's because we're grossly overworked. And they have a lot of data to support this, and like what our work productivity looks like at 40 hours versus 50 hours versus like 30 and stuff like that, and how we're all technically working way too much to be super efficient, even at our own work. And I think that what they really spend a lot of the book doing is to give us permission to like not do stuff, like to just sit at home and do nothing if that's what you feel like doing, and to stop beating yourself up about it when you have to do that sometimes, because of course you have to do that sometimes. Look at our society. We are all busy little bees 24/7. So I think about this a lot. It's helped I think it's been very freeing, especially because I'm a teacher. Teachers are chronically considered an overworked population. I think that this was a really big stepping stone in showing me that I need to prioritize working smarter and not harder, and I need to not apologize to anyone for that. In a similar vein, How to Keep House While Drowning by Casey Davis. This one kind of builds off of Laziness Does Not Exist. If you're really burnt out, one thing that's like really freaking difficult to do is clean. And it goes through a lot of the different reasons why people have a crappy relationship with cleaning. It's not just burnout, it's all kinds of different things. It's how you were raised to clean or not raised to clean and things like this, and the attitudes that your family put on you towards it and things like that. And I thought, again, a validating read, and it's really changed my approach of how I tackle cleaning my own house. They do give like practical tips, so, like, you have a pile somewhere, basket, bin, something. Maybe it's still a mess, but it's in a bin now, right? Little steps to, like, if you're struggling to do a particular task, how to get yourself to do it a little bit. And also just kind of, they have this mantra of anything that's worth doing half-assed. No, hold on, I did that wrong. Oh my god, I'm like that one meme. If you give a fish, no, that, please tell me you know what meme that is. Okay. Anything that's worth doing at all is worth doing half-assed. So if you know that your kitchen's gross and you don't have much energy to actually hardcore clean it the way that maybe you think it should be, just do enough that it's not gross anymore and go the frick to sleep and try again tomorrow. Like, right? Like, you know what I mean? So I feel like it's put a lot less pressure on me. Like, I don't have to clean my entire house in one shot. It doesn't have to look perfect all the time. And they talk about how your home should be functional and not gross. And that's going to look a little bit different for everybody, obviously. But as long as your house are those two things and you can maintain that, you're probably doing just fine. I like that it was, part of the book was dismantling why we feel so overwhelmed by cleaning. But then the other parts are just kind of like, all right, here's psychologically how you get out of this. And then also here's some practical tips if you're feeling really stuck. And then the last one is one I just read. I read Dreamland by Sam Quinones. And oh shoot, that's not the full title. What's the full title? I'm trying to do the full long titles for y'all so you get the idea of what it's about. So Dreamland, The True Tale of America's Opiate Epidemic. I live in Ohio. Yeehaw to that. And the opioid crisis started here, right? And it's something that's really impacted my life and my community. I've never been on them, but I know people that have, and it's been not great, obviously. And I feel like this has really contextualized how the heck we got here. And I feel like I just didn't know anything about this topic. Like, I thought that I did. I did not. It basically outlines how doctors were able to just start mass prescribing these things, what pill mills are, and how they started in Ohio, and how this guy was just like, people would line up outside of the facility. You would go in, they wouldn't even take your temperature. They'd be like, what are you in pain for? Okay, cool. Here's your Valium with your Oxy. That's a great combo, right? See you next month. And you had to pay out of pocket for this stuff, right? And so naturally, this got really expensive for people really fast. This doctor got them hooked. And so now all of a sudden, that doctor's got his little proteges that are, spreading this mentality throughout the country that this is fine. Big Pharma was like, yay, we like OxyContin. And then we had drug dealers from foreign places that were bringing opiates into America and bringing heroin, which was a cheaper alternative. And so this all created this perfect storm that so many people were sick and so many people were dying. And I don't know, it's one of those things where even though I knew that this was a global problem, that this was a nationwide issue, that this was an Ohio issue, I just felt like reading some of the statistics and knowing who I know that fell into some of them, it just kind of made me feel like it wasn't just us. I don't know. It's sad. I feel like I learned a ton. And I'm starting to, I think it's really hit me for the first time how big this really was and still is. And how it was able to happen to begin with. On that fun and funky, fresh note, those are my favorite nonfiction books. I hope you enjoyed this cute little video. If you want to see any other of my favorite books content, I have a playlist, and one of them that's on there is my favorite series of all time. Barely anybody watched that, so if you want to watch it, highly recommend. Maybe one day soon I'll do a favorite standalones video as well. Okay, I will see you guys later. Have a fabulous day if you're not already. Bye.